And now it's my great pleasure to introduce our commencement speaker, Dr. Athol Fugard.
About 50 years ago, when the first of my plays to appear in a published book form, I was asked to write a little introduction for it. And in the course of that introduction, I stumbled on an essential understanding of the elements of the craft that bind all of you young practitioners and those up here who practice in the arts as well, whether it be in theater, music, or in dance. And what I stumbled on was that, in essence, the craft, at the level of craft, the challenge that faces us, I'm going to address myself to you. The challenge that faces us is to occupy 3 dimensions: space, time, and silence. And whether you are, it was on this very stage last night that at a certain point, a marvelous conductor and the orchestra, audience fell silent, and the baton was lifted, and away we went with the first item on the program, followed by the Mendelssohn Symphony, and then the Pictures at an Exhibition by Mussorgsky. It was a thrilling experience, and it was also great theater. It was really great theater. There was silence, there was a space, and there was time, because unlike a novel, which you can put down and read over a couple of weeks or a couple of days, depending on its quality or its length, theater has a very strict definition of time. And, my great masters in that respect were the great Greek tragedians. And the play that I'll be doing next at Signature, the last of my 3 plays, which I've had the privilege of directing here in New York. I didn't direct My Children, My Africa. That magnificent production was done by Ruben Santiago. But the next production I will be in the helm again. It's called The Train Driver, and it's very Greek in that respect. Very, very Greek in its observation of the unities and in its length of time, and there we go. That's at the crafting level. But then comes another question. And this is the key question, actually, finally, if you understand what you're up against. And as a craftsman, well, I think of myself as a craftsman. I like the spelling of my profession as play, W-R-I-G-H-T, a maker of plays. I try to put a play together in the way a good carpenter makes a table. And the challenge we face, again, whether it's music, dance, or theater, is given those 3 dimensions, what do we fill it with? What do we fill it with? Now, I'm not ever embarrassed by the word or have any problem with the word entertainment. I think above all else, we sit down in a theater seat or in one of an audience for a dance program, or in a venue like this for music. We want basically to enjoy ourselves. And, well, it's a very complex word, of course, because sometimes what other people are enjoying, I don't find particularly enjoyable myself. I mean, to enjoy an evening in theater, dance, or music, it's not just a question of laughing. It's a question of being given something to think about, something to talk about after the program, something to meditate on in the days after I leave whatever the space was. And its challenge, what is so complex about it, is that it brings together some of the most powerful human emotions. I mean, we have to bring together hope and despair, justice and injustice, hate and love, And it's when we combine them in the correct way and balance it all perfectly that you have, well, you have the great theatre of the Greeks, you have Shakespeare, you have plays by Tony Kushner, you've got theatre, good theatre. Infinitely enjoyable and tremendously provocative and profoundly moving. And if you want, for example, hope, listen to Beethoven's Ninth. If you want an example of, or if you want to listen to despair, Mr. Christie and I were exchanging thoughts on that, and I chose the Lamentations of Jeremiah. If you want, I've got a note of it here, listen to Thomas, yeah, that's right, Jeremiah. In my own play that's coming up, The Train Driver, which I've told you about, I try to bring together hope and despair in a final moment of that play. And I will read you something from it. It's, yeah. It's about a train driver, ordinary man, who one day when he was on a regular run from a station, I set the play in Port Elizabeth, but the story that inspired it came from Cape Town, where a mother with her 4 children waited on the side of the tracks, and then when she saw the train coming and there was no chance of it stopping, she stepped out onto the tracks with her 4 children, and all 5 of them were killed. The moment I read about that, I knew I had to write about it at some point or the other, and to take command of that story and make it my own and take possession of it. I moved it from Cape Town to Port Elizabeth, my hometown, and I made the woman who commits suicide a mother with just 1 child, and I gave the train driver an identity. I gave him a name, a face. And the play concerns the journey he makes from an ordinary white South African life of mixture of confusion, blindness, prejudice, anger, frustration, to a profound understanding of something bigger than himself at the end. And to arrive at that, he finally confronts the spirit of the woman in the graveyard where she is buried, nameless, because nobody claimed her when she lay on a marble slab in the morgue. Nobody wanted the body of a woman and child. And he evokes her spirit, and he talks to her. And he says, I have difficulty in understanding why you did it at first, because you do know what you did to my life, don't you? You all virtually destroyed it. I don't know if I've got a home left, a wife, children. I've lost my job. But as I spent time here in this graveyard with the gravedigger, that's the other character in the play, I began to understand something about what the world and out of which you came. And I realized finally that it all comes down to one word: hope. Hoping good things are going to happen to you, that tomorrow is going to be better than today, which was terrible. And there you have it. You see, Red Duck, that's the name he and the gravedigger give to this nameless woman, because they don't know what her name is. The one distinguishing feature was that she had a red scarf wrapped around her head. You see, Red Duck, I don't know what it is like to live without hope, to give up. Because you did, didn't you? That is why you did what you did, because you didn't believe anymore that good things was going to happen to you and your baby. I'm thinking about it all the time now, trying to imagine what it is like for you. It is very dark in Simon's shack, that's the gravedigger, at night when he blows out the candle. So I lie there in the dark and I ask myself, was it like this for her? Was it as dark like this for Red Duck? darker, I say, because her darkness was somehow inside her as well. And how the hell do you light a small candle there? When I think about that, when I try to imagine what it is like for you, I get frightened. So then, what now, you ask? I've got to do something. I know it's too late for you to do anything, but I still got a chance. What's more, Red Duke, it feels very urgent that I do something, because it feels like I am losing you. And if that happens, if I can't remember your face, because that's what he saw, staring at him for those few seconds as a train with its wheels screeching on the rails, because he was on the brakes, he was tramping those brakes. But for those few seconds, his was the last face she saw. And he was the last person to see her. Because it feels like I'm losing you, and if that happens, if I can't remember your face anymore, then I am really going mad, like they all say I am. But I am not. And to prove it, I know what I must do now. I've got a newspaper story here in my pocket, which is all about me and you. There is one thing that always sort of upsets me in a special way when I read it. It's where it says that nobody claimed her. Did you know that? Did you know that when you and your baby was lying there in the Mount Road mortuary, nobody came to claim you? Can you believe that? A mother and a baby, and nobody wanted them? Because you know what the Bible says, don't you? We are all made in His image. You, me, Simon, every human being, made in His image. But now you are lying here in this place for the ones without names because nobody wanted you. Well, that is not the way it is going to be anymore. Because now I hold up my hand and I say, I claim her. Me, Rolf Versaghi, the driver of the train what killed her, wants her to be his. Finish and klaar. You are mine. And God is my witness tonight, even as He was when it all happened. You see, Red Duke, if I did lose you, if ever for one day I forget what happened to me and you between those two little stations called Perseverance and Dispatch, then God must send me off to hell when I die. That is what I've tried to do with my writing, and I think that is what art does. Whether we celebrate this complex, magnificent mystery of the human soul, whether we celebrate it in a dance, in music, or in a play, whether we are the playwright or the actor or the soloist or the dancing, the ballerina that leads the dance or whatever. What we are all trying to do is celebrate the essential, complex mystery of being alive, living with these complex emotions that define us as human beings. Finally, ladies and gentlemen, I just want to share with you two other things, because I had the privilege of having an encounter. First one from South Africa, and one from your legacy as Americans, young Americans, from the literature in your legacy. And from South Africa, I got a poem in my mother's language, Afrikaans. I'll read you just a few lines of it so that you can hear what the language sounds like. Where is it? Sorry. Ek ken gereelde gaste binne my mure. Bedmaats wat gulsig aan my lyf suig, terwyl ek hulle met stomp vingers fyn maal, en die wurms wat ondervoet bars, hul wit paparasie skril ten hemelig skreeu. Sedertdien kom vliee gereeld om in my whisky te verdrink. That translators, the poem is called, it's named after that great Buddhist mantra of compassion, Om Mani Padme Hum. I entertain frequent guests between these walls, bedmates that suck greedily from my body, which I grind when I grind them to pieces with blunt fingers, and the worms bursting underfoot scream their pappy white mess to the heavens. Since then, many flies have come to drown themselves in my whisky. How does one measure tragedies? I know it by my own cruelty. Because the gnawing of endless bodies entombed in the ceiling, she wrote this when the ceiling above her little house was sealed off because of rats, poison put down, gas pumped in, and she had lived through 2 agonizing weeks of hearing them die, because they do protest. They do protest. They might not have words, but they protest. Because the gnawing of endless bodies entombed in the ceiling, the whining of frightened puppies, the frantic search for wet hollows where they can drink and can die, stay with me like the little bullets of shit, early morning gifts aimed at my breast and raining down from the ceiling. She dedicated that poem to a South African writer who she says had helped him to listen to them die. And that actually defines one of our, if we feel we have any sort of creative spark, that is one of the things we have to do with our lives, is listen with courage. Not put cotton wool in our ears, not put dog glasses on our eyes. We have to look, listen, and try to understand. The second and last quote, friends, comes from Moby Dick, that magnificent book. I don't know how many of you have read it, but if you haven't, do so. And there's one chapter, the shortest chapter of them all, in this monumental work, and it's called The Lee Shore. It's chapter 23. It's very short. And he says, Melville, some chapters back, one Bulkington was spoken of, a tall, new-landed mariner encountered in New Bedford at the inn. When on that shivering winter's night, the Pequod, that's the name of his ship, thrust her vindictive bows into the cold, malicious waves, who should I see standing at her helm but Bulkington? I looked with sympathetic awe and fearlessness upon the man who in midwinter just landed from a 4 years dangerous voyage could so unrestingly push off again for still another tempestuous term. The land seemed scorching to his feet. Wonderfulest of all, things are ever that unmentionable. Deep memories yield no epitaphs. This 16th chapter is the stoneless grave of Bulkington. It goes on for just a few more lines, but I'll stop there because in the way that Rolf Versace said, I claim her, I think every artist, in a way, should rescue from those voracious jaws of time that just swallow up millions of lives each year and no record of them is left. We can always rescue a few moments, a few things from that voracious appetite. And with that shared thought for you, all of you, and my very good wishes, because you go out into a world now, this is your rite of passage. You leave the cloistered environment of Juilliard for the marketplace. And believe me, that's the New York marketplace is a hard one to beat. Okay, thank you.